Welcome to Riding Along. Today's episode is about great dialogue versus terrible dialogue, good dialogue versus the worst dialogue. You recognize it and you know it when you see it. I'm talking TV shows, books. You've read dialogue that just is so unrealistic, or maybe even in a great story, you get like this part that you're just thinking, like, this doesn't belong, this shouldn't be here, it just doesn't fit, it's just not nice to read, or because it's unrealistic. And I really believe that you can write amazing dialogue without having to just experience these migraines over how to do it. It's not climbing a mountaintop to write a conversation as it would really occur. I think what really needs to happen is you got to stop editing your dialogue. Not just what I think needs to happen, but what you really have to do. What I've seen work for others and myself included is the second you start editing dialogue as after you write it, who does that? Who talks in a conversation and backspaces and then changes something and goes into people's long-term memories and short-term memories and strategically wires the words to say something else when they think back on it. It's just you can't even really fathom that occurring because that's not how it happens. You can say something and then backtrack later. You can say something and then change your mind about what it meant and how you wanted to say it, or it something came to your mind spontaneously. That's what conversation is. Even instant messaging. You think of what you're gonna say, you send it. Yeah, you can hit edit. Yeah, you can fix your typo. You can even signify like, hey, I misspelled that, or put an elaboration after it. Much like talking to someone, tell them right after, hey, I didn't mean it that way. You know, this is the way I really meant it. You don't edit what already did happen though. When you're writing, you got to treat it like it is reality if that's what you're trying to portray. Most people don't really care for fabricated dialogue. You can tell, you know, when someone brings evidence into a court or they're up there on the stand witnessing and something just isn't right about what they're saying. You know, it's just false. It's premeditated. It's fabricated. It's untrue, and it's frankly seen through by everybody. And that's how readers are going to see your conversations as you write them between characters, even just internal monologues. This isn't against editing, right? I mean, you can edit your work, especially for typos and stuff like that, if we're talking about professionalism and such. But whether you're screenwriting or writing a novel or quoting somebody in your own words, you always want to be very true to how it really would have been said. And that means letting it flow from your brain. It knows how to talk. You might not even think you're the best talker in the world. You may stutter in real life. You may stumble over your words. You may feel that you, in general, can talk to people, but not as well as you'd really like to. And it's just a skill you wish you could really improve more on. But nevertheless, you're still talking. You're still, and if you're just sending a message to somebody, you're still coming up with words. And that's all you really need. You don't need much else. People love to listen in on things. If this was a private conversation between me and you, and suddenly we started talking in really hushed tones, and there's a lot of other people around us, most likely they're not everyone, but some people would be like, what are they talking about? You know, what's going on there? Or if there was someone who could overhear us from another room speaking, having a conversation that is presumed to just be private, people are going to listen in because why? Fill in the blank for me. I would like you to fill in the blank. I'm not this expert psychologist on this topic. I just know when there's an information gap that people kind of discard that question of because to begin with. And it doesn't really matter. They just want to hear. They just want to listen. And that's what your reader, that's what your audience wants too, from your dialogue, from your conversations. They just kind of want to listen in. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. They don't have to be discussing how to take over the world. They can just be talking about what they had for breakfast or what ridiculous sight they saw throughout the day, or not even ridiculous, just basic perceptions and observations and thoughts on what's going on around them. Even just On other people, they could be talking about other people, and oh, did you hear this about this person? Oh, well, yeah, that blah blah blah, and such. This back and forth occurs. Someone stops. Someone might be a long um, talker. Their dialogue in real conversations. There are people who just talk and dominate a conversation. There's like 10 people, and they're the only ones really saying anything. Cool, put your character to talk like that. People will recognize that. They'll be like, oh, I know someone like that. That their brain will categorize it already, because you're creating something real, and it's reflecting something that actually pertains to the world that you live in, that I live in. I don't think you live in another world. Uh, I really don't think you do. You might have a different context in your life. You may live in another country, another state, another city. I'm from Southern California. I don't know where you live. I experienced all these things that I experienced. You experience what you experience. You have your own past and history and life and dreams and goals. But for the most part, you're. If I met you in person, I'm not in some other dimension. I wouldn't be seeing you and you don't see me. As you're watching this, if you're watching a video on YouTube or listening to the podcast hearing me speak, there is another person on the other end that's telling you all this stuff. And because of that, I recognize certain things that you do too. Certain things that you come across in your life as well, I've come across too. And just picture me as your audience, and I'll know. I'll be reading your conversations, your dialogue, and I won't say, "Oh, this is terrible. I hate their dialogue so much." It's so unreal. It doesn't flow like that. I'm not going to be thinking that. I'm going to be thinking about, what are they talking about? What are these characters trying to say to each other? The world is a lot less critical than you think. I'm very critical, but not of others, of myself, of my own writing. That's maybe, I don't know if it's a flaw or something. I don't want to call it that, but it's definitely a fact. And I have a feeling it may be something within you as well. The extent to which it exists is something that there may be a little more variance on, but I'm willing to bet that you're a huge critic of yourself. You might be your most vocal opponent of things that you do and accomplish. You just downplay certain things. And it doesn't mean you're just a downer about everything you do, but because you don't vocalize that, you don't express that to those around you. No one else would really know except you, and because of that, you may think everyone else is like that too. It's not the case. It's really not. When releasing something out into the world, the general world, not these little niche communities that exist and proliferate online. There's a lot of aggressive circles online. I don't know. Maybe they just don't have better things to do, or there's just so much that you can find yourself in. It's hard to find a good writing group too for this reason, and other support groups, because again, there's always this attacking. The general world, I'm telling you, is not like that. They're too obsessed with themselves. They're too absorbed with what's going on with them. And they just want to read a good story. They just want to read a story to begin with. You might be thinking, there's probably some things out there that you don't like. Maybe it's a television show, or a movie or something, or a book, and it's so popular, and you just can't understand why people like it. Who cares? They like it. Let that, if anything, be a relief to you. It is funny. There's a lot of humor in this stuff, but the bar isn't that high. Is kind of what I'm saying. That doesn't mean you want to stay at the bottom, whatever that bottom looks like for you. It doesn't mean you want to write like these people you don't like or admire. But you can know that the barrier of entry isn't really that high. You don't have to write this genius book. In fact, that may hurt you. That may harm you if you try to do that in the long run, especially if you're kind of forcing that to happen. What you want to do is write like the way you already think. Communicate the person that you already are / becoming, and that's all you really have to do. You don't worry about don't worry about hitting the mark. hitting the mark is having a nice format, when you publish your book. Meaning it's not difficult to physically read. You don't just have, it's not just littered with exclamation points everywhere. Just these like unnecessary things, that kind of stuff, little stuff that an editor can fix. That's what takes your writing from not accessible to accessible. Not stuff like the little minutia that you think matters. It's easier. It's so easy to write. And I'm trying to get that through to you because there are so many excuses that you're littering and polluting your mind with. There's a reason why you're not starting today. There's a reason why you're not writing right now, or you didn't earlier. Maybe you did, but you didn't really feel that inspired. You can do it right now after this video. And I legitimately want you to. Check out this guide at writingalong.com, my website. No other associations on it, just my own site. Grab your copy. I send it to you personally. Why? Because then it lives in your inbox and you have a reason to open it. And it's just going to haunt your inbox. It's going to be there. Write your book. And you don't have to spend a lifetime doing it. Because there's really nothing greater than having a book with your name on it. Not because of all the superficial aspects of it, but just because it's a form of self-expression that allows you to be a better person. Proceeding onward, you can write the next book. You'll discover all this stuff to yourself because I know you will write your book. Not just for some motivation nonsense that leads nowhere. Guess what? I've said this before. It takes a lot from me, from anyone, to believe in other people. Because that belief, they could use it for themselves. They can use it for all kinds of other things. There's a finite, you can't count it, but it's not infinite. A certain amount that you have. And I'm giving it to everybody. And I want you to give it to yourself more importantly. That's really what matters. I can only give you so much. It's not, oh, cool, David from Writing Along believes in me. I can write a book. You owe it to yourself. And there's a way to get there. And I do offer it in the guide, and I offer it in all these videos. This is 100 days of writing advice. I thought about shortening it to 50, but you know what? No, we're going to go for 100. Let's see how that pans out. And I know by the time you're watching this, maybe they're all done already. And you're just watching this in a playlist, a video. I'll make it into a playlist. As always, thanks for stopping by. Good dialogue, great dialogue versus bad dialogue. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Don't edit it so much. And you'll find it'll resemble a conversation because that's how conversations work. You might regret the things you say sometimes. But you know what? You can elaborate further in the future. Maybe there's consequences for that, but you already said it. It's been said. Let your dialogue reflect that too. All right, I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for stopping by today.